knowledge obtained so automatic. Combat it and you might not survive the static. These niggas is fabric soft, but of course stand ready in line for extortion endorsed. Hand in hand goes money and fame. These honeys and dames, whips and chips off the chain. Enough greenbacks makes people.
Thomson, former Strikeforce lightweight champion. Josh, man, how'd you get involved in MMA?
You know, I was wrestling a little bit in high school and college, and Trevor Franklin and I were wrestling, doing some jiu-jitsu and some Thai boxing at a local gym up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, under a guy named Derek Cleveland, and we were training with him for a while. And he came to us and he goes, "Hey, you know, you guys want to do a fight?" And we're like, "Yeah, sure." So we went and did a fight, and you know, and I lost. I was like, "All right, this ain't for me then." So I got done with that, and like a year and a half later, I came back and was training down here in California. I was training in California with Bob Cook and Frank Shamrock and Javier Mendez. I was training there, and I came back up to Idaho after about a year of training down there, a year and a half training with them, and then decided I'll give it another shot, you know, have a fight. Got called like on a week's notice to fight a kid. Went out there, had a great first round knockout, and then they called me like a month later. And they said, "Hey, you know, would you fight again?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And they tried to set me up against this really tough wrestler kid, and Carlos Zamora, and I fought him, and that was a 7-second knockout with a head kick. And ever since then, I've been addicted to it. So this, having the time off from the first loss, and then having two fights win in the first round, both knockouts, I said I got the bug, and here I am.
What is your biggest accomplishment other than the Strikeforce lightweight title?
You know, for me, really what it all came down to is I always wondered if I had it inside me to get through a tough fight. And I think in the Herbie Swanka fight, that to me was my biggest fight. He was undefeated. There was a lot of hype around him. He just beat Uno. He kicked the crap out of Uno, actually, and Uno was the big deal coming over from Japan. And so at the time, I was like, you know, I really wanted that fight. Also, one of my training partners, Rich Crumpleton, was always giving me fits in the gym. You know, lost to Hermes in the UFC. So then when I had a chance to fight him, I told Dana, I was like, "Yo, set that up. You know, I want that fight." Especially after he came off the win with Uno and me coming off the win with Strabet. I knew that I didn't think that Hermes could sub me. So that to me was a fight that I wanted to test myself against, and then how it all went down. I dominated the first 2 rounds, and he clipped me in the third, dropped me. And I always wondered if I had it in me to fight through adversity and to see if I could get through it. When someone was putting the pressure on you, or if I would roll over to my belly and just tap and give up and fold. So that to me is probably my biggest accomplishment. I always wondered if I was a real fighter inside, or if just somebody that liked to run their mouth and talk, you know. And I think as a fighter, like that old saying with the Fight Club, you know, in the movie The Fight Club, you know, you don't know how much you know about yourself until you've been in a fight. There's a lot of truth that goes to that. Is that I really wanted to know what I had inside, you know, and that to me was the biggest fight of my career that led me into being more successful, also more confident in my game.
What is your dream fight versus someone, and then what's a dream fight you just like to see?
You know, my dream fight versus someone will always be, I think, the Gilbert fight. Gilbert and I, we complement each other. We've had 2 great fights. Both of them I consider to be, you know, good fights. Me having one and him having another. I think it's going to be, the third fight's going to be inevitable. Hoping it's a 5-round fight versus a 3-round. Some fans get their money's worth. And, you know, but other fighters that I'd love to fight all the top 10 guys. I've been asking Strikeforce to give me a top 10 guy. You know, I have yet to be named an opponent for this fight coming up in June. So I do know that it will be someone tough, and I'm excited to find out who it'll be. So once that all gets worked out, we'll see what happens.
Excellent. And then what's a fight you just want to see?
You know, not really anybody that just jumps off the charts right now. I mean, I would say a lot of guys, you know, but right now the fight I really want to see is I want to see the Koscheck St. Pierre fight in a 5-round fight. That to me is the biggest fight right now in my market that I want to see. I'd love to see, you know, me and Eddie Alvarez. That to me is a fight I'd love, you know, as far as the striking aspect and everything. You know, Gilbert and I, of course. And just overall, a fight I'd love to see is another fight with Fedor and Alistair to find out what's going on with that. I mean, you can't really, those fights there will always be entertaining, they'll always be good, those type of fights. So, and then to be honest, I don't know what it is, but lately I gotta say, any fight with Nick Diaz, I gotta tell you, he's definitely come a long way, grown into his own, and people don't like him, but you know, I think he's a great fighter. I mean, you know, I think he's a great fighter. So I love watching him fight anybody, I think.
All right, well, thanks for your time, man. Appreciate it. This is MMA Gear Advice.